All right, Matthew, welcome to a new school year. We're going to start off this year a little bit slow. We're going to review a few of the things that you learned back in 6th and 7th grade. Make sure you can be as successful as we go forward. All right, so this is lesson 0-1, adding and subtracting integers. So we got to figure out what that word integer means in the first place. Well, we got a whole bunch of numbers with different names. And basically, when man started using numbers, they started with the natural numbers. We decided to count with 10 because we've got 10 fingers. Most of us do, at least. So the natural numbers are just our counting numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. Well, I skipped 4 there, but you know the point. All right, and then at some point, people decided, you know what? It'd really be nice to have the number 0. And so the whole numbers are the natural numbers with 0 included. So we said 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll add 4 this time because it's actually a number. And then at some point, probably when people started, trading with each other, they decided, you know what? We need something called negative numbers to show maybe like when we are missing something or when we owe somebody money or something like that. So the integers are basically the whole numbers and they're negatives. So we've got -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. So that's what the integers are. They are the whole numbers and then all of the negative equivalents of whole numbers. And then you've got a different kind of number called a rational number. A rational number is anything that can be made into a fraction because the first word there is ratio. Ratio means fraction. So rational numbers are any number that you can turn into a fraction. So we've got 3/4, that's obviously a fraction. 1.25, yes, that can be a fraction. That would be what? 5/4. 0.3 repeating, that's 1/3. Okay, so those are rational numbers. And you might have been introduced to a different type of real number. So these are all the rational numbers over here. Remember, integers can be turned into fractions as well. 1 can be written as 1/1. -2 can be written as -2/1. So these are all rational numbers. And you might have been introduced to what are called irrational numbers. Irrational numbers represent numbers that are decimal numbers, but these decimal numbers go on forever and they never repeat themselves. So pi, we usually use symbols with irrational numbers because it's impossible to actually write these numbers down because they go on forever and they never repeat themselves. So pi, that would be an irrational number. The square root of 5, which would be 2 I'm going to guess 2 something. So this number goes on forever, but it doesn't repeat itself. So it's impossible to write down, so we use this symbol. And as you go on in math, you're going to find more and more irrational numbers. Even this is not all of our numbers. These are called the real numbers. Back 300 or 400 years ago, they decided that, you know what? We need some other numbers. We need something called imaginary numbers. So we'll get into that probably when you get into high school, probably about math 2 or so, like your sophomore year of high school. But for right now, we're going to just deal with the real numbers, and specifically today, integers. So what are integers? Integers are positive whole numbers. So positive non-decimal numbers. They are negative non-decimals. And 0. We have to remember that 0 is neither positive nor is it negative. It's just 0. So an integer can be any positive non-decimal number, any negative non-decimal number, and 0. Integers are not fractions. Integers can be turned into fractions, but we can't have 3/4. That would be an integer. We can take -2 and put it over 1 and get a fraction out of that. Integers also don't have any decimals to them. All right, so next part. Identify what would be considered a positive, negative, and 0 in the following situation. Sometimes Matt has money in his wallet, and sometimes he has to borrow money. So in this situation, what would be positive, what would be negative, and what would be 0? So I would probably say that positive is money in the wallet. Can't spell. Positive is money in the wallet. And I would probably say that negative means I owe somebody money or I borrowed. And I would probably say that 0 means I'm broke. I have no money. All right, at the beach, Stephanie digs holes in the sand with a bucket and piles up the buckets of sand in a heap. All right, so she's at the beach. She's got a bucket. She's digging into the sand, and then she's also making piles of sand. So what would be positive? Positive would be a pile of sand. What would be negative in this situation? Probably a hole. Spell. And what would be 0 in this situation? Well, probably the ground being flat. No sand's been added, no sand's been taken away. Oh, man. Oh, there you go. Thought I messed it up. All right, a cormorant is a bird that can both fly and swim underwater. In fact, they've been known to dive something like 250 feet under the water. So they don't just like under the water, they go pretty far into the water. So we've got a cormorant is a bird that can fly and swim under the water. So what would be positive in this situation? Probably the bird flying up above the water. What would be negative in this situation? I would probably say negative would be like when they're diving under the water. But what would be 0 in this situation? I would probably consider 0 in this situation to be the bird like on the water, like swimming on top of the water. So why do I bring up these 3 situations? Well, sometimes when you're dealing with positive and negative integers or just integers, and you're adding and subtracting them, sometimes you get the rules a little bit messed up in your head. So it's nice to have some way to go back and think, okay, let's see, this problem here says 5 minus 12. So let me think of this as money. This means I have $5 and I owe somebody $12. So how much money do I have? A lot of times when you put the problem in terms of money, sometimes it's just easier to figure it out. So in this case, we would say, oh, if I have $5, I owe $12. That means I have -$7. We can also do this on a number line. So here I'm starting at $5 and I'm going to subtract $12 from that. So that means I'm going to go this way. I'm going to have $. So I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And there's our answer, -7. So 5 minus 12 is negative 7. Negative 2 plus 6, or plus a negative 6. So remember when it says plus a negative 6, this is the same thing as negative 2 minus 6. Let's think of sand. Negative 2, she's got a hole. Stephanie has a hole that is 2 buckets deep. And then we're going to combine it with, that's what this plus would mean, we're going to combine it with taking out another 6 buckets of sand. So I start with a hole, and I'm just going to make the hole deeper here. So what should I do with these two numbers? I should probably just add them together. My hole is going to be negative 8 buckets deep. So I'm starting at negative 2. Negative numbers go this way. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there we go. We've got negative 8 as our answer. Next one. Let's think of the cormorant. Negative 9, what's that mean? Well, it means that the bird is starting 9 feet under the water. Plus 11. That means they're going to go up 11. Well, are they going to be in the air at this point, or are they going to still be underwater? Well, they're going to be in the air. They're going to be in the air by 2 feet. Because they're down 9, they go up 11. That means they've broken the surface of the water, and now they're flying 2 feet above the water. So we're starting at 9, and then plus 11, we are going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Just like we said it would be. And I'm going to have to fix that so it stops doing that. Sorry. Last one, negative 6 minus negative 4. So this means negative 6, that's where we start, and we're going to do the opposite of negative 4. Well, what's the opposite of negative 4? That means we are going to add 4. So this is actually negative 6 plus 4 right here. So negative 6, and we're going to add 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We get negative 2. All right, so remember when you are going around and you're doing these problems, that if you're having trouble remembering the rules, which way to go if you're adding these numbers or subtracting these numbers, put it into a situation. Or you can put it into money, digging holes at the beach, cormorant flying above the water and diving below the water. So here we get to our rules. So if the signs are the same, so if they're both positive or if they're both negative, what are we going to do? If the signs are the same, we add the numbers. So we're going to add the two numbers together, and then we're going to keep the sign. So if I've got 5 plus 2, they're both positive numbers. I add those two numbers together. 5 plus 2 is 7. And then I keep the positive sign. Over here, I had negative 2 plus negative 6. So negative 2 combined with negative 6. They're both negative numbers. So what did I do? I added these two numbers and I kept the negative sign. If the signs are different, so 5 minus 12, those are two different signs. What am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to subtract the numbers, but keep the sign of the biggest number. The biggest number was 12. We're talking about the absolute value here. So 12 is bigger than 5. So this 12 was negative, so our answer is negative. Here, there are two different signs, a negative and a positive. 11 was the bigger number. 11 was positive, so our answer is positive. Over here, we had negative 6 plus 4. 6 was bigger, so we kept the negative sign that was with the 6. So we keep the sign of the biggest number. Remember, when we say biggest number, we're just talking about the number without the sign. So when we're looking at this next one, 1 is negative, 1's positive. They have different signs. We're going to subtract those two numbers. So the difference between 21 and 14 is 7. And now I have to decide, is this a positive 7 or a negative 7? 21's bigger than 14, so I keep the sign of 21, which is positive. So my answer is positive 7. Over here, negative 8 plus negative 6. This means negative 8 combined with negative 6. They have the same sign. So I'm going to add the two numbers. 8 and 6 is 14. And then I keep the sign. They were both negative, so this answer is negative. These are both negative numbers. So I'm going to add them and keep the negative sign. So 35 and 15 makes 50, so it's going to be negative 50. Over here, 9 minus 15, those are different signs. So we're going to subtract them. What's the difference between 15 and 9? The difference is 6. And then I'm going to keep the sign of the biggest number. 15 is bigger than 9. 15 has a negative sign, so it's just going to be a negative 6. Last couple problems. So here we've got negative 5 plus the triangle is equal to 7. We're supposed to find the number that fits the triangle. So negative 5 plus what equals 7? Well, I think it's 12. And now I'm going to make sure I'm correct. Negative 5 plus 12, does that equal 7? Yes, it does. Because they're different signs, I subtract the numbers. And then 12 was bigger, it was positive. So my answer is 7, it works. Next one, triangle minus 11 equals negative 3. Now look what's happening here. It has minus 11 here, but then negative 3. So that means this has to be a positive number because negative 3 is bigger than negative 11. So what positive number is bigger than 11 by 3? Not quite bigger than 11 by 3, but if I subtract 11 from it, will still give me negative 3. That means 8 is my number there. 8 minus 11 is negative 3, and I'm going to prove it just to make sure it works. 8 minus 11. 8 minus 11, they're different signs, so I subtract them. The difference is 3. And since 11's bigger, it's a negative 3 right there. Negative 14 minus the triangle is negative 20. So I'm starting with negative 14. I'm going to subtract the triangle. Sorry. Whew. And then I'm going to get negative 20. So I need to take away, I need to get a bigger negative number. So it needs to be actually smaller. So what number goes in here? I think it's 6. Let's see if that works. Negative 14 minus 6 equals negative 20. Does that work? Yeah, they're both negative. So that means I add the numbers, 20, and keep the negative sign. Last one, 6 plus triangle equals negative 17. All right, I'm going to have to subtract a bunch from 6 to get it down to negative 17. I'm going to guess it's negative 23. Let's check our answer. 6 plus negative 23. Yep, that's negative 17 because I subtract the two numbers. 23 was bigger, so I keep its sign. All right, that's all we got for our first lesson. Welcome back to school. We will see you at the next one. All right, bye-bye.